As we're waiting for the next witness to take the stand, let me take this opportunity to introduce our guests who have been sitting by patiently for the past hour listening to testimony and waiting to offer their analysis of what we're hearing. We have in-session legal contributor and analyst Sunny Hostin, forensic and clinical psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Bober, he's in Miami, and former Florida Circuit Court Judge David Young. Welcome to all of you.
Thank you so much.
Doctor, let me start with you. Does your practice, which I understand does include child and adolescent psychiatry, does it involve patients who are adolescents grappling with homosexuality or what they think may be homosexuality and how to come out and tell people about it?
Absolutely. You know, this is really a very tragic case because if you look at the rates of suicide in this population, it's 30 to 40% higher than their same age peers. So this is a national mental health epidemic. These kids are really struggling and they really are out there with no one to rescue them. So I do see a lot of kids in my practice who are coming out and who don't get the support that they need from their family, from their peers, and it leads to very high rates of suicide when you compare it to their same age peers.
And so, Judge Young, let me ask you, he's not charged with causing or implicate or anything the suicide. Now, do you think it's because there's no evidence of it, or the law doesn't allow the state to make that leap, or maybe just not enough evidence?
I don't think the law is broad enough to make that leap, Beth. I really don't. I think what we've heard from this witness today was a pattern of conduct of pretty egregious proportions by the defendant in this case, and I think that's why they're charging him what they did. But as far as the murder is concerned, no, it clearly was a suicide, and there were just no facts that would warrant such a charge in this case, unfortunately.
Well, the third witness for the state is on the stand, another student who lived in the dorm. His name is Alvin Arthur. Let's go in live.
Yeah, that's good. Okay. Thanks. Now, before you got...
Okay, so it looks like they are taking a break, or at least the attorneys may be conferring, so that gives me an opportunity to go back to my guests in Miami, Judge Young and Dr. Bober. Doctor, yeah, they're taking a break. Doctor, let me ask you about your patients who are grappling with this issue of coming out. I mean, how, and you started to talk to us about the epidemic, how difficult is it, and what do you say to them?
You know, there's nothing about being gay that makes your risk of suicide any higher. It's simply an environment of intolerance and prejudice and homophobia that is created around these people that causes them to be more likely to commit suicide. And there are things that we can do as a society to help these people feel supported. For example, peer mentorship programs, anti-bullying councils, and having a support system in school that is educated about this issue so that we can provide these people some support.
And this trial will give us an opportunity to continue this dialogue. Meanwhile, let's go back to the courtroom for cross-examination of Alvin Arthur. I had thought it was the afternoon break. It's not that break yet. So let's get our experts in for their perspective on this case. Joining me is in-session legal contributor and analyst Sunny Hostin, and forensic and clinical psychiatrist Dr. Daniel Bober, and former Florida Circuit Court Judge David Young. You know, David, want to ask you, Judge Young, want to ask you about your own personal experience, because you are open. And I know I've asked your permission to ask you this. Can you tell me what it was like when you came out?
Well, again, it's like apples and oranges. When I came out, I was 35 years old. I was already a judge, and I knew that I was gay. And I just realized that if I was going to be a complete person, if I was going to ever hope to have a relationship and have a quality of life, I couldn't hide from this anymore. You have to be who you are. But leading up to that, I thought to myself, if I ever came out, this was when I was 17, 18, 19, the whole world would collapse. Everyone would talk about me. I could not be a judge. I could not be a lawyer. I could not be in politics or do whatever I wanted. It would be this cloud over me that would be there forever and ever and ever. And you know what, Beth? It didn't happen. We're in a different time, 2012, than it was in 1977. But in bringing back to this case, what this poor young man had to go through, I really feel sorry for him and for his family. Because yes, he was out, but he wasn't out in school. And the fact that the defendant in this case, although he says was not homophobic, and the lawyer did a pretty good job bringing that out, actions do speak louder than words. By taping what was going on in the room not once but twice, by twittering what happened in the room not once but twice, it leads me to believe that there was some really deep homophobia going on here, which needs to be addressed, which this lawyer is going to have a really tough time convincing me and others that the whole episode that led up to this young man's suicide was not caused, in fact, by his client.
Now, the
by his client's homophobia.
The attorneys are in sidebar right now. We can see Ravi with the headsets on. Sonny, let me ask you about the charges in this case, because Steve Altman stressed that this case is not, or his client is not homophobic, he's not a bigot, he's not intolerant, and the evidence apparently is going to show that. To me, that sounds like he may put his client on the stand, although I guess he's trying to bring some of that out on cross-examination. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I have the same question. It would make sense to put his client on the stand to deny the homophobia, to deny that he was motivated by hatred. And I think the best evidence of that would be Darun Ravi getting on the witness stand. I think in terms of the invasion of privacy count, quite frankly, I've got to tell you, I'm trying to figure out what the defense to that will be, because I think that's a pretty simple case to show. I mean, Tyler Clementi asked for his privacy, and he didn't get that. In fact, he got a webcam in his room. So I think the invasion of privacy count is going to be difficult to defend.
I totally agree with you. It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was just going to follow up and say I think it's a jury nullification type of defense with the invasion of privacy. It seems pretty rock solid. So the argument will be it was just a prank. Kids do these things. Right. They talk on Skype. They talk on iChat. I mean, they do these things, and they don't think they're crossing over the line into criminal territory. So it's more of a nullification. But bias intimidation is different, and that's the heavy hitter here. It's not a crime, but it's an aggravator and makes it up to 10 years, right?
That's right. I mean, that is really what this case is all about, because we know he did not take a plea, which I thought was kind of a sweetheart deal, in fact, to no jail time, 600 hours of community service, and some counseling. And if he gets convicted on this bias intimidation, the law requires, Beth, is my understanding, imprisonment, and that's up to 10 years. So this is really a tough case, I think, not only for the defense, but for the prosecution as well. And that's really the crux of this case, the counts that are related to the bias intimidation.
Now, court's in a break, so you're not missing any testimony. I do have one quick question. We are starting to run out of time here, but Judge, it is a fact that Darun Ravi was not born in the United States. He's not a citizen. And while Steve Altman says, look, he didn't take a plea here, there was some sort of offer because he is not guilty, there might have been consequences if he pled to a felony, because he may have been deported.
The prosecution said that they would do everything that they could not to assist in any type of deportation against the defendant. But the fact of the matter is, it's a federal issue, and the federal immigration court is completely, they do their own thing, they're autonomous, and they in fact would make that decision. But getting back to, if we can for 1 second, to the bias issue, you know, you don't hear people say, I hate gay people, or I hate black people, or I hate this one, or I hate that one. You really have to go to the motive, and you have to go to the actions and look at the individual's actions. And if that indicates they are homophobic, you know, I could say I look like Brad Pitt, but look at me, I don't look like Brad Pitt.
Judge, I have to cut you off. I'm sorry, because we've absolutely run out of time. I'm so sorry. We will have you back. You can finish that thought in the future, but that's all the time we have for today. We're going to continue pulling double duty for you come Monday. We'll have more live coverage of New Jersey versus Darun Ravi, and we'll also be keeping you up to speed with North Carolina versus Jason Young, where I will be in Raleigh. The state has rested, or is about to rest, and the defense will begin its case next week. Thanks for watching. This is In Session, your front row seat to justice.